All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use, fair use, fair use. All right, Shalom. We are the Hebrew Israelites from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone. We're here to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rahakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on our highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like it to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, today is yet another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob. All right, and today we'll be dealing with an article from EJI, which is the Equality Justice Initiative. And today's topic is going to be white mob lynches Marie Scott in Wagner County, Oklahoma. All right, this situation happened in 1914. We will put a link to this article in the description box of the video for you to read at your own leisure. But right now we'll get into the opening scripture.
It's Obadiah, verse 10. It says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever."
God, and this is speaking directly to Esau, Edom, the so-called white man who is the wicked, according to Malachi 1:4. Okay, his violence against Jacob, meaning the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, and we're seeing that every day, 365, 24/7. This the hell that he has put on us since we've been in this land. All right, and it says his shame shall cover him. So now that we know who we are, according to Ezekiel 37. Consequently, we find out who everyone else is. All right, and we can pinpoint who the true devil in this earth is, which again is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And you're saying that today with the leader in office, that cruel Lord. All right, and now that we're starting to bring that stuff out, which they're trying to criminalize, we're starting to bring out their history. All right, of all the atrocities that they've done, and we've been doing this now, going close to 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, close to 2 years now. We're at probably at 187 videos to this point, and we haven't even scratched the surface, of the stuff that he's done to Jay, because the history continues. We see it right now. We haven't even gotten to modern times with the police brutality. Hit a few stories here and there, but not in depth on what they've been doing with their laws, and the government. And that's the thing too. Jake, you need to stop it. Once you learn your history, the very government you're asking reparations from and the laws from is the same government that's responsible or had some accountability in all these videos that we've been doing. Every single one of them. All right? So you're asking the wrong person, and for that reason, the Lord has told us many times, that no man, and it curses, no man is going to save us, which means no man is going to redeem us, only the Lord. That's who we have to turn back to. All right? There's only one way. You saw in Avengers Endgame, Doctor Strange, he asked him how many, Iron Man asked him how many chances, what are the options? He's, held up, there's only one. Out of how many, 600 million, or something like that? That's not to say that this is what this is, but as a people, we only have one option, and that's coming back to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, repenting, for forsaken our wicked ways, as the scriptures tell us to. But a lot of Jacob's just not going to do that, you know, and it's foretold that way. Only, you know, only 1/3 is elect. He's going to do that. All right, so that's the thing, you know. His shame is covering him, and when stuff hits the fan, and we're seeing it right now, World War III is here. You know, there's no other way around it. All we're waiting for now is that MOTB, and once that happens, you know, when that MOTB comes in, World War III is going on. That's when the Lord is going to step in, and then that's when the beginning of Esau, according to that scripture, Obadiah 10, you know, his end starts. You know, he goes into captivity, and then after that, like the scripture said, he's going to be cut off forever. All right. Somebody got something?
I got Ezekiel 35:5. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, and the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou have not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. All right, so, you know, obviously, all right, we're talking about the nation of Esau, Edom, right here, man. All right. It says they had a perpetual hatred, and this is something you can constantly see through our weekly videos in the For Life Violence Against Our Brother Jacob series. All right, that perpetual hatred that they have. All right, meaning perpetual is something that's never ending, man. It's everlasting, man. All right, they hate Israel down to the core, man. That's why they can do the things that they do and not have any pity. Mm-hmm. All right. But hey, soon come, hey, the things that you've done are gonna be returned unto your own head, man. God. All right, that scripture says, "Since thou have not hated blood, blood shall pursue thee." All right, so since you have so much unbridled lust for blood, all right, guess what? That's gonna be returned unto you, man. You're gonna see what it feels like to be constantly pursued, all right, and destroyed, man. Mm-hmm. All right, up until you're exterminated, man. All right.
God, yeah, what's that? Colossians 3:25. He that doeth wrong must receive for the wrongs which he have done. There's no respect of person. So yeah, y'all gonna get it. All right, you got anything? All right, so we'll go ahead and begin with the article. Like I said before, we'll put a link to this article in the description box. All right, it says on March 31st, 1914, a white lynch mob in Wagner County, Oklahoma, seized a 17-year-old black girl named Marie Scott from the local jail, dragged her screaming from her cell, and hanged her from a nearby telephone pole. Days before, a young white man named Lemuel Pierce was stabbed to death while he and several other white men were in the city's colored section. Marie was accused of being involved. All right. It says,
so not only did she got put in jail or accused, all right, for the stabbing of Lemuel Pierce, but that wasn't enough to put her in jail, man. Mm-hmm. All right, she was already accused of it. Guess what? That wasn't enough. They pulled her out of the jail cell, and you're gonna see what happened to her, man. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, that goes hand in hand with the scripture you just read, mm-hmm. Ezekiel 35.
Yep.
All right. It says the Associated Press wire report and accounts published by northern papers explain that the group of white men had ventured into the black residential area to sexually assault black women and attempt to rape Marie Scott. That was normal back in that day, all right? Because they knew they wouldn't get in trouble for it. Psalm 73:5. It says, according to some of these accounts, Marie stabbed Pierce in self-defense, and others, Marie's brother killed Pierce in an effort to defend her, and Marie was only arrested and lynched because her brother escaped. All right, that's, again, that perpetual hatred. Local press reports, on the other hand, did not say anything about why the youth were in the black neighborhood or what they did while they were there, simply claimed that Marie Scott stabbed Pierce unprovoked and in cold blood, man. Except, yes, I'm.
Yeah, 1 second. Slack, yeah. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, and verse. I wanted to get in verse 2, but I just started verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds, upon their beds, Slakia. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand." All right, obviously this is talking about Esau, because guess what? They're currently in power, man. Mm-hmm. All right, woe to them that devise iniquity, man. and work evil upon their beds. All right. Like I said, Esau is currently in power, and what is he choosing to do? He's choosing to be evil and wicked. All right, and this isn't something that's new. Where we reading about it right now. All right, he's choosing to be evil because he can, man. All right.
I just want to add, it's good you started at the top because, like the article just said, why were they there? There was obviously a plan to go there. So that's, goes to exactly what you was just saying. They plan to go there and do that stuff. All right. Go ahead.
Yep. Verse 2, it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. And Esau is known for that, man. Known for constantly, oppressing Jake, man. All right. No matter what the situation is, we see stories like what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, man. All right. They see Jake thriving. What do? They go and stick their nose in it and try to destroy it, man. And there was another one we did a couple weeks ago. I can't remember exactly what it was. Was it the sticks or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was another community where Jake was starting to thrive, and Esau, guess what? They stuck their nose in it, man, just because they can. All right, so Esau is known for being super oppressive towards the nation of Israel, man. And in this story we read right now, all right, just because they couldn't, ultimately Jake probably didn't even do it in the first place. But just because they accused Jake and couldn't find the person that they accused of doing it, they went for his family, man. All right.
And to your point, as far as in the sticks, he invited Edomite invited the workers, so-called blacks, into his town to do work, and he fed them. Well, actually, it was like a party, but as they were partying and drinking, their houses were being burnt down.
Yeah, damn. Straight devil, man.
Yep. So he was in this, what does it say in that story we just read? He was in the town where it was considered to be for colors only, man. Or he was in what does it say?
Color section.
Yeah, color section. And they was, why was he there, man? Just to be evil, man, and try to destroy Jake, man. All right, he was in a so-called black neighborhood trying to cause trouble, man.
Yep.
All right, and it ultimately led to Marie Scott being put to death, man. At the end of the day.
I have something real quick. This is a book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 23. It says, "The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath." And I looked up the expectation. This is the state, or the active state of expecting, anticipating something expected. All right, so when they went into that neighborhood, they had an expectation, as it tells you, to SA women. If they take advantage, and they knew that they were pretty much pushed by their lust.
Yeah.
And so they knew that they wouldn't get in trouble, and if they did, they can falsely accuse.
Yep.
And as a result, around 1914, there was a heavy thing of lynching. Because Ida B. Wells, I believe she, spoke and had letters and things in and around that time. I forget the time frame for her, but I can look it up.
I think that that whole period was called the Reconstruction period, after slavery was technically abolished. Okay, that's when your lynchings really picked up. Because you were no longer their property, so if you weren't working for them for free, they took pride in killing Jake at will, and weren't going to let you succeed. Because those areas, during that period, we've done videos on Red Summer of 1919, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oscarville, Georgia, all those different areas. We were on our own doing very well. Okay, our own schools, own hospitals. Did not need Esau for nothing, and he hated it. And I guess if I'm that wicked and I'm saying that these people have been, in slavery, 1600s, and then within a generation and a half, you're doing better than them. That speaks volumes about the type of people that we are, man. And you don't even have your own language.
So I found it. Ida B. Wells was she pioneered investigation journalist, and who was most significant reports on lynching and racial injustice were published in the years 1890 to the early 1900s. So it's pretty much said 1892, which was the Southern horrors of lynching, all the way down to 1919. So she was reporting around or in and around that time that you spoke on. So it just to show you that the expectation, of the wicked when they came into a community or when someone was falsely accused, wrath came behind it. Somebody was being unalive, cities were being burned, people who were not guilty or innocent were being jailed, and they pretty much could get away, as people would say, scot-free, and live older ages. But again, what they didn't have, and take pictures of the lynchings, send them as postcards. These was like an ongoing thing, and we talk about terror on a city and on a people, like you brought up earlier. Israel, since the time that we were brought into the Americas, actually before the time when the natives encountered these people, all the way until the time now, we've seen nothing but terror and bloodshed.
Yeah, and this period that she was also too, they had a thing called spectacle lynchings. That's where word went out, and it was like for lack of better words, a huge festival. People coming around from all different areas, to watch this happening. I know we did a video a little while ago. I won't say last fall. You made a point of one of those where there was so many people there that it seemed like the air was choked out. This devil is something else, man.
Where we had that term, it said pick a nick.
Yep.
So it was like pick a nigga, and they would sell, and they would sell tickets.
Yep.
And have train rides to the town. Children, young and old, all from prestigious lawyers and doctors, government officials, all the way down to the blue collar, white collar workers of America, the patriots, soldiers, government, all from top to bottom. At many points were involved in many of these unalivings of so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native American men and women. And as the brother brought out, as thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy own your violent villains shall fall upon their own head. Roughly paraphrasing.
And that I was watching a clip yesterday. I forgot about the AM radio when that came out. I saw a video yesterday when they were starting announcing this stuff, so word was traveling real fast.
So like I said, you talking about the sundown town, that were created, cities, like I said, being filled up with water, being destroyed and filled with water. We've been going over and over a lot of these things. So to read this was just an opportunity for a lot of them. So if there was a false accusations, Rosewood, they knew that she was she was running around town with many of the men that was doing the actual unalivings or the terror, and yet they used it as an opportunity for blood. So they were unaliving many blacks, and they don't really talk about it a lot, but essaying the women and the children. They were being displaced. They were running out of the city, and once they would leave the city, they would pretty much take over the homes and the farms.
Yep. lost all their goods that they had earned. Yep, they sure did.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, back to the article. It says, for generations of black women, racial terror included the constant threat of sexual assault and a complete lack of legal protection. The same communities that lynched and legally executed black men for the scarcest allegations of sexual contact with white women regularly tolerated and excused white men's sexual attacks against black women and girls. And might I add here too, those same white men were doing that to men too. You know, the black man, you know, it's not mentioned here, but we know that to be a fact. You know.
And that's too psychological when you have a nation where, you know, you have the men that can't protect their own.
Yeah.
You know, their women can't protect their children. He can't protect
himself.
themselves.
God.
You know, so there's a psychological breakdown, you know, of the people. And then as time go on, you fast forward, you know, to, you know, the later parts of the 1900s, you know, where now they're giving subsidies to the women, you know, housing, and where now they then push that you don't need a man.
Yep.
But it was all psychologically broken down early on when you even going back to the Willie Lynch letter, you know, how he speaks of, you know, putting the man against the woman. And of course you take the biggest, strongest buck, break him down in front of everyone. They would talk about buck breaking. And then if the women and children see that, you know, there's no protection, you can't even be protected from your own man,
Right.
then they of course look for the first thing of safety.
Right.
You know.
Right. And you know, there's that goes back to that ancient envy of us. You know, we were just in Exodus, you know, in Bible study, and what was one Pharaoh wanted to do? Kill all the male children that were born. You know, when you get rid of the male, you get rid of the nation. You know, same thing when Yahweh was on the scene. You know, kill all the males 2 years and under. You know, yeah, and that just goes to prove, you know, there's no such thing as, you know, biracial. You know, you are whatever your father is. Period. All right.
All right.
Front me real quick. You got to look at how, you know, back in the day, all right, the men of the house was looked at by the family, man. It was looked at like as a symbol of strength, man, and you know, stability, man. So when Esau came in and they did these things to, you know, the men, all right, and the fathers of the household, guess what? That completely eradicates any hope or whatever that the rest of the family had, man. If they doing this to my dad, all right, if they doing this to my husband, I ain't got no chance in hell, man. All right, so it's all a mental game that they was playing, man.
Yeah. And in that same sense, when several of them would storm the house, you know, tie the husband up or hold him down while they taking turns on his wife, you know. That's another, you know, she had to look at him like, dang, you know, you can't defend me. But just to make that point there in the story, all right. So,
well, and if we could, you know, the Lord's, you know, just a couple of scriptures. The Lord gave us to their hands.
Yes.
You know, so it wasn't anything as we spoke about, and you know, like it can't, you know, we brother brought it out where it's like it's not anything in their might. You know, the Lord had turned His face.
Yeah.
You know, and He said that these things would happen. We were going to the hand of our enemy.
But He also said in the scriptures, I believe when it curses, you have no might in your hands. You know, and even still, you know, we look at that. It gives you, you know, a glimpse into seeing just how powerful we were. Because even to this day, Esau, the average Edomite, is not going to mess with Jake alone by himself or unless he's heavily armed. He's just not going to do it. You know, and we've seen through all these stories, it takes, you know, thousands of people to lynch one person. You know, thousands. But that's the way it is. You know, they know our strength. All right. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the article.
Yeah, we got one more.
Yep, one more. All right, last paragraph. It says, given this history, Marie Scott may have been among the many black women targeted for sexual violence during this era by white men who knew that they would face no judgment or consequences for rampaging her community. Whether she acted in her own defense or was protected by her brother, Marie Scott died at the hands of a mob, the victim of a society that devalued her life and body, deprived her of the chance to defend herself at trial, and denied her the right to be free from rape, terrorism, and racial violence. And again, you know, that's all of us. You know, when I say all of us, that's both the so-called black man and black woman. All right? They did not discriminate because they wicked. All right? They did not discriminate. All right, y'all got something?
Yeah, this is the book of Zechariah 11:5, verse 5. It says, actually, in 4. Verse 4 says, "Thus said the Lord, power, my." It says, "Feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them, and hold them not guilty. They that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not." So the point is, want to make is that the possessors, right? He given us into the hand of the enemy, and he's done wickedly, cruel, all the things in which his heart desired. Like he says, for he eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. I think Brother Wayne brought it out where he talks about, they rest upon their bed, to do wickedly. They sleep not lest they've done mischief. Their sleep is taken away lest they've caused some to fall, going back into the last point. And so they do these things, and that they know that there's no harm or trouble coming unto them. But yet, it was just only a matter of time where it tells us in Thessalonians, the Lord said, he will let him, let's get it real quick, until he be taken out of the way.
So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 7.
Start with then when the wicked shall be revealed. It might be after that.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, this 2 Thessalonians 2 and 7. It says, "For the mystery of the iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way."
Yeah, so how will Bashem Yahushai, he ruleth in the kingdom of man. Prophecy must happen. So there would be a time in which he was going to be revealed. But the Lord had allowed him his time. And like Job, is mentioned in Job, that he's given him a balance that he cannot pass. Right? So his days are numbered. And we know that we're currently, fast forward, today's time, we're at the end. All right, so he's allowing all these things to happen. Now he's being revealed. Go ahead.
Yep, it's verse 8. It says, "And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth."
Real quick, he says in Zechariah, where it said, "Whose possessors slay them and hold them not guilty." We have to know who the possessors are. We have to know who the wicked is. We have to know who we are. So the Lord brought us back in the memory of these things through Yahushua. Yahweh brought us back into the memory through Yahushua, through this word, to give us an understanding of who the wicked is, right? Go ahead.
It says, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth,
which is by the prophets.
Yeah, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.
There's pretty soon, there's going to be, as we see, there's a fire that's being kindled already, with the divisions amongst their own people. So just going to say that from the top to the bottom, you see that there's a war and division.
Yep.
Deuteronomy 30 and 7, he said that these curses shall fall upon them, upon all those that were enemies unto the children of Israel. So now they're seeing these same curses. They're going to deal with a lot of the things that we have to deal with in righteousness. And of course, we're not going to have pity when they're now yelling, "We're all in this together."
No.
Because I've heard that before, where I work, when certain situations started to happen, they were all good and, and what they were doing when stuff was seemed to be peaceable, but then they were being their hard ass taskmasters and micromanagers and on their high horses. But then when things start to happen, we're all in this together. Now you want to bring all the people together and talk good words. No, you're on your own.
Yep. And even the unlearned Jake is seeing that now. You see the trend going around. We minding our own business. We keeping our eyes at home. And now, Esau is seeing that he don't give that the elites of their own nation don't give a shit about them either. So yeah. You got something else?
Yeah, no, that was it.
Okay. I got a couple. This is Numbers 35 and 33. It says, verse 33, and it reads, "So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it." So pretty much that's saying, those of you who have been doing all this killing, all this time, all right, defile this land. America is, this land is heavily defiled with our blood. Going all the way to the time when Cristobal Colon, or better known as Christopher Columbus, came over here. All right, the land that our blood has defiled this land since that time by the hands of his people. All right, so it's only right that we return the favor, and the scriptures tell us that. This is Joel chapter 3, beginning in verse 19. And it says, "Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land." Okay? And Egypt means a house of bondage, according to the scripture. Mizraim, okay? And it says, and compares that to Edom. So that's telling you who it is, who we're in captivity under. Edom, the so-called white man. Esau, Edom, all right? It says, because, it says, "For the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land." Okay, and verse 20 says, "But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation." And what that's telling you right there, that's us in our immortal state. When we have the laws in our inward parts, okay, can never go off again. All right, dwelling forever, that's immortality. From generation to generation, that's immortality. Okay, which means we're going to be in our original state with that God-like strength. Okay, so what are you going to do against that? There's nothing you can do against that. At the time, and with Sodom and Gomorrah, it only took two to take out those Sodom and Gomorrah. All right.
Yeah.
Then it goes on. It says, verse 21. Here's the point. It says, "For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For the Lord dwelleth in Zion." So by our hand, He's going to do that. It says that in Ezekiel 25. All right. By the hand of my people, He's going to, bring Edom to naught, which is also in the 18th verse of the chapter Obadiah, the scripture we opened up with. Okay. All right. Anybody got anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. So with that, we hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, going to give all praises, glory, and honor to
Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash.
Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like to the speckled bird, also known to Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
Kwam Yasharala.
Kwam Yasharala.
Ba ba ba.
Ba ba ba.
Shalom.